press? Where's the press?
He's wandering around. Welcome.
What time is this meeting advertised for?
All right, please rise for Northampton County Council meeting. A pledge is going to be led by our own resident CB, Mr. McGee. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Ms. Zembo, can you call the roll?
Mr. Kusick. Present. Mr. Dietz. Here. Mrs. Ferraro.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mr. Kraft.
Here.
Mr. McGee. Here. Ms. Fargo-Hefner.
Here.
Mr. Warner.
Here.
And Ms. Zirinsky.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve July 19th meeting minutes.
So moved. I'll second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next thing is courtesy of the floor. I have no one signed up. Is anybody wish to address the county council tonight? Seeing no one, move right along. I'm swapping things around here. I want to have the county executives report before we do the confirmation of appointments. Mr. McClure?
I have an answer to the eternal question. How much is that doggy in the window? The answer to that question is it's free. We have had the wonderful fortune of being contacted by an anonymous donor who wishes to donate a canine to us, which will undergo canine training to work in the prison and in West Easton to detect Schedule 1 through 5 drugs. So this is, for those of you who have been here for a long time, or we're here and came back, you know from time to time we, as I have described in the past, had crises in the prison of contraband. So since I've been county executive, one of the things I've been the most serious about is the security, the safety and security of our corrections officers, and the safety and security of the people who they're watching, because they're our neighbors and they're going to be back out in the grocery stores with us, and when their sentences are due. So we want to make sure we take as good a care of them while they're serving their sentences. So we think this canine unit will help us do that. There are some real financial reasons to do this. Overtime, you'll see in the budget when you get it this year, overtime is still a persistent problem at the jail. We think this canine unit will help us address overtime. We have to date spent $30,000 in having suspicious substances found in the prison analyzed. That's to date. It's about $113 per contact with this suspicious substance. So we're hoping that the canine will help us weed through, what should be analyzed and what shouldn't. So we're hoping that people power time will be reduced in flipping mattresses, if you will, because of the canine unit. We're in an attempt to get our overtime under control, and we're hoping that we can lower our costs in analyzing these drugs. I think I saw one statistic. I don't know how accurate it is. I haven't independently verified it, but about 3/4 of the hits of the substances that get analyzed turn out to not be Schedule 1 through 5 narcotics. So a lot of time and resources are being wasted, and we think the canine will help us with it. And since the dog is free, we really are excited about taking this opportunity. And if you have any additional questions about the details, Director of Corrections Pastor is here with us tonight, and he'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I know dogs are exciting. Retirement Board. Retirement Board. As of the last Retirement Board meeting, the Northampton County Pension Fund was $415 million. $415 million. We are 90% funded. The OPEB fund, which is as you know, the retiree health care fund, is at $42 million, which is extremely healthy when you consider post-retirement health care benefits were ended for new hires in 2010. So those funds are in great shape. We are 90% funded, which is pretty much the gold standard for public pensions. Now, that fluctuates with the market. So, tomorrow we could be 88% funded. But as of the last Retirement Board meeting, which was last week, we were 90% funded, which I think we are the second or third best pension fund in the Commonwealth.
Wow.
So this is, and I have a theory about why that is, and Mr. Cusick, he might have one. Mr. Kraft, Mr. Warren's been here a long time. There are really two reasons. One, the stock market. The stock market has been up and up and up, and the other reason is this body and past administrations have been, I think, committed and in some cases overcommitted to funding the pension fund. So $10, $12 million a year. And I think past administrations and certainly staff within fiscal have always been reluctant to decrease those numbers in any substantial way because they didn't want to create an environment where an exec would come along and not put anything in. Because as you know, the law doesn't require us to put anything in. The law only requires us to pay the benefits. So, but that's not good government. Nobody thinks that's good government. But when you're 90% funded, you're sitting on $415 million in a third-class county, you might be able to give your taxpayer a little bit of a break and maybe not put $10 or $12 million in year after year after year. So that's something that you may have to consider as we go forward. As I said, the retirement board met, and as you know, we were working on this problem of which began in the Brackbill administration, of contributions being taken from pension benefit checks. We ended the contributions at the retirement board from being taken out of the checks. And the next part of the analysis we had to do was, what do we do about these contributions for health care benefits? And although we believe that the county has a defensible position, and the retirement board has a defensible position, that the Brackbill contribution regime and then the subsequent administrations who continued it and increased it is defensible in court. Just because it's defensible doesn't mean you'll win. That's the first thing you need to understand. And the second is, it doesn't mean it's right. Just because you have an appropriate legal position, it doesn't mean you're right. So Mr. Barron, who's here with us tonight, and Brandon Dunstane, he's a fiscal accountant, and he is the accountant to the retirement board, came up with a plan. And my only input with respect to the plan was, we cannot ask county council for any more contribution, any increased contribution for whatever plan you come up with. So whatever plan you come up with, it can't be more than we put in last year, okay, into the OPEB fund. And they did. They came up with a plan. So the retirement board had a resolution before it which ended contribution. Now, not copays. You still have your copays within the insurance plan, right? But ended contributions by the retiree themselves, who is the person who the county has the contract with, okay? But in order to not materially affect the OPEB fund, such as future county councils couldn't make their responsibilities to the retirees, the retiree who pays zero contribution, all retirees, zero, have to pay 3% for their spouse or 5% contribution, spouse plus one. And this allows us to do this in a fiscally prudent way, which we believe is legally sound. So that's what the retirement board did, and that's my report on that. Finally, you got my communication that I'm the shortest serving member of the General Purpose Authority in its history. I apologize for that. When I received communication from the current chair of the General Purpose Authority, Mr. Langen, who appeared for a couple hours before you, and then the next day you unanimously in a bipartisan fashion called for his resignation, which he has yet to give you. He wrote to me. It was clear to me that he was receiving pro bono legal guidance from somewhere, from where I do not know. But he had a 1941 Supreme Court case which called into question as to whether I could appoint myself to the General Purpose Authority. Instead of letting him waste any more public money on lawyers, I chose to resign, and I'm sure he'll be very happy if you confirm Mr. Dertinger to be working with Mr. Dertinger on the General Purpose Authority, because he's often a pleasant fellow to sit there with. So that is why I did that, and I certainly hope that you'll confirm Mr. Dertinger, because that will give us a full complement of the General Purpose Authority, and we'll begin to make the changes that need to be made there. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McClure? Mr.
One quick one with regard to the K-9. Have you run that by P Corp for our insurance purposes?
I have not, but that's a great question. Did we do that, and what was the answer? And the answer was?
Don't let it bite anybody.
We're covered.
It's covered?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Who's going to take care of the dog?
Do you,
Never been recognized.
do you mind if Mr. Castor
May I
comes
be
up and
recognized?
addresses the
Yeah,
question?
Mr. Castor, they seem to have questions
I just
about
wanna know,
dogs.
I know.
No, the dog may not go to the pooch place.
No, it's a different kind of dog. It's not a puppy.
Ms. Hefner probably is concerned about this more than me, but I would just like to know, I'm just curious, who's going to care for the dog? I know canines go with officers, and they go at their home. I just wonder.
Next month's resolution.
First of all, good evening, and
Thank you.
for calling me up for any questions. The lieutenant, we have a lieutenant that was selected, and the dog, the canine, will remain with the lieutenant. So we'll go home and come to work with the
Okay.
canine.
And then he'll make it, the dog will be available when you schedule and decide you want to do it.
That is correct.
Okay, that's all.
Any other questions about the new dog?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's good for the perception, proactive measures.
Thank you.
Great.
I believe in next Personnel Committee meeting, there'll be something in regards to the dog and the keeper that we'll have to address, but, I think it's a no-brainer that we should do that. Any questions on this side of the dais? The dog was given to you for
The
free. Didn't you
dog's
listen to
given
the
to
county
you as a
executive's
gift.
report?
Well, there's the exception that you have to
You accept the gift,
You have to accept the gift, and then that's a whole
just like
deal.
we did with the trees.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm
Just
sorry.
one-
Mr. Kuzic has
yeah.
a question.
Well, it's more of a technicality. Do we have not for the dog, but for the handler, do we have a job description that will go along with that? Because that's something that HR would have to develop. I don't think we have anything like
I
that
think it's coming in
currently.
2 weeks.
Will that be?
That'll be coming in 2 weeks.
That's personnel
It's going
first.
to be- It's going to be a lieutenant, and it will be, the job description is already flushed out, so you'll have that for personnel as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a million.
Okay, next thing on the agenda, although we're moving it around, is confirmation of appointments. Mr. McGee, could you please introduce the resolution for appointments?
Resolved by the Northampton County Council that the following individual shall be confirmed in their appointment as indicated hereafter. To the General Purpose Authority, appointment of Charles M. Dertinger, and the term to expire December 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Are there any discussions from
I
county
have a
council? Yes.
I just want to say I agree with the executive in your actions. I mean, I know it's FDR's Supreme Court that said it in 41, but saving us money. So, I'm sorry. He probably had his
We
influence.
had the right administration.
Yeah. I have to say, I wish Mr. Dertinger luck, as I do Ms. Hefner. I'm never as surprised by the mendacity of this board in my short time on council. And this is just another amazing example of it. I find it fascinating. So you can't be on, but your director of administration is going to be on. I just wonder if this is becoming some silly game of tag by some of these people. Not from your end. I'm just saying I believe what you're doing is the right thing. I agree with it totally. I think Mr. Dertinger will be a fine addition. I heard he has a better personality than you. That's what people have told me. But at the end of the day, this board is just, I've dealt with a lot of authorities and boards, and this one just, I'm just amazed sometimes. That's all. Mr.
Thank you for the enlightening dissertation.
that's okay.
Ms. Vargo Hefner?
Anytime.
I do have a question. I don't know if it's a question or if it's a comment also, but I just don't understand, as do you, why we have to continually question the appointments to this particular board. I thought it was part of our job description. I've reviewed their minutes, their articles of incorporation. I've gone through the whole thing, and it clearly says that it's our job and our duty. It even seems like they're beginning to question our right to sit on the board, which, I find astounding. So I hope there's a way to just clear this and make this happen in the future and establish our authority or not, because it's ridiculous. It's taken too much time for something that should be, I think, is a simple action.
Any other input? Mr. Kuzic.
I support this. I think it's a good appointment. I think Mr. Dertinger will do a fine job. One of the concerns I have about the GPA has been meetings being consistently canceled. It's hard to get work done on a regular basis if you're canceling meetings. It's seemingly every other month. So I would urge you to have these meetings every month. And the second thing that I would like to have addressed is we currently have two zombie authorities that still exist, the Higher Ed Authority and the Hospital Authority. I think a serious look has to be taken by the GPA at whether or not those two authorities should continue to exist. I know there's a money issue, but I think there are ways that we can address that and come to a conclusion.
I think the GPA sort of did stumble toward subsuming those two authorities into its authority, and then I think the money is the issue. And I think if the GPA determines the money should come back to the county, which would be my suggestion, because I think there's $500,000 for the Weller Center that was never spent. Is that right?
Wow.
And then what else is there?
There's about $900,000
in total of money that's just sitting there that's never been spent. So that could come back to the county, and then I think you could abolish those authorities, which I would be in favor of.
Good, because I think what you did with the gaming authority by pushing it toward an end is something that we should look at doing. And I think that the GPA should be taking the lead in making that happen.
We do have to make sure, though, that there are no outstanding liabilities from either of those authorities, and we can satisfy them from the money that exists, right? And then bring an ordinance to you to abolish them. I think they should be abolished.
Well, the Weller Center's gone already, right?
Well, this is the thing.
I mean, they're out of business.
There's $500,000 just sitting there.
Yeah, sitting for the Wellers to pick up. Well, I
Right.
concur with Mr. Kuzic. Any kind of authority that has no purpose any longer in this county, we should look into
And all
seriously
kidding
getting rid of
aside,
that.
this is potentially money for the low scale hydroelectric plant.
Right,
So
which would
that
be-
so that then no direct taxpayer funds would go towards matching the grant.
Right, it's just sitting there, waiting for the Weller Center to open up again. So,
Right.
okay.
Okay,
Any other
thanks.
any other discussions on the confirmation and appointment of Mr. Dertinger to the GPA?
I just had one question.
You do. Okay.
I actually do. You made reference to us calling for Langen's resignation. Why has that not happened, and what else do we need to do to make that happen?
You can't make them resign.
You
It's
can't.
an independent
So
authority.
So what authority do we have then, just in the appointments, not in?
Confirming the appointments.
Okay.
Yep, and your authority, you just saw, I think, an excellent example of it. Mr. Cusick says, he has Mr. Dertinger here. He says, look, I want you guys to meet.
Right.
And I think Mr. Dertinger would say, yep, we're going to meet. And what was the other one? The other authorities.
Zombie authorities.
The other zombie
that's-
authorities, yeah.
That's really that's all we can do.
And
Okay.
I would just add, if you get a chance, if you haven't, read the memo that.
I did read.
I mean, I think he makes it pretty clear what we.
That was just my shot across the bow to the director of the GPA, saying, doesn't anybody read the home rule
The
charter?
problem
That's
you
all.
have with that, though, is
Yeah.
you have so many outstanding bond issues for the nonprofits,
Right.
for Lafayette, for Lehigh, for St. Luke's. I don't think you could, until all of those bonds are satisfied or refunded, which of course they're never going to be. Never is a long time, but it'll be a long time.
It's a lot of money. You're right. It's huge.
So,
But Mr.
I'm not sure
Dertinger's
you could
appointment
abolish it
will,
right now, is my point.
Right. Thank you.
I have a comment to her question. I've made sure, I asked today whether Mr. Langen was sent a direct copy or any communication regarding this, because there has in the past been some issue about how he receives information and invitations. So apparently he was sent an email, but we've also sent him a letter and proved that we've sent a hard copy letter, and I will hand deliver one on Tuesday when I take my seat. So there'll be no question that the county council made this motion, because he seems to not know. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. We're getting off course here. This is a confirmation on the agenda right now, so I'd like to call for the vote, please.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Rinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
And Mr. Dees.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you. Old business, public hearing on the ordinance entitled, an ordinance providing for the amendments to Northampton County Ordinance Number 411-2003, titled, an ordinance of the County Council of the County of Northampton, Pennsylvania, requiring an annual license permit fee for commercial weighing, measuring, and scanning devices, setting forth definitions, establishing the requirements for obtaining a permit, setting forth penalties for violation thereof, and establishing the effective date. The ordinance was introduced by Mrs. Vargo Hefner and Mr. McGee at the June 19th meeting. Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at this meeting. Anybody from the public wish to address this? Seeing none. Anybody from County Council wish to talk about this any further after our meetings?
I do.
Mr. Deeds.
So I oppose it. Now, looking through the last few years of budgets, and I asked Linda to reach out to Mr. Dertinger, and we didn't hear back on the numbers for it. But looking at them, in 2015, the revenue was $200,000, expenses were $148, so it was roughly $50,000 in gains in it. In 2016, it was $206,000, expenses $155, again another $50,000. 2017 was $212 with the expense of $147. Revenue of about $64,000. These fee increases again would raise it up to $300,000, which is another $70, which means it would be making about $130,000 a year, turning this into really profit making for the county. And while I think it's a good service, that $150,000 truck we're talking about could be purchased every year. I think we could find the money for it, and of that $50,000 that it makes every year, put that towards paying off the truck. With the increase of the position, I think it does increase efficiency and get more inspections done. It will also increase some of the revenue. So I stand by when this previous administration had brought to increase these. They also brought up about, they pulled me aside and brought up about, they could expand to other counties. And I don't think that we should raise the cost on the taxpayers in Northampton County on a thought of expanding, what we do out to other counties. And the argument of that it hasn't been raised in a number of years, I think it's something we should be proud of, not say that it hasn't been raised, so we should raise them. I mean, it's making money. It's above its cost. I think that should be the role model for other counties or other entities to look at, not for us to say we should raise it because it's been run properly.
Thank you. Well, I personally feel that these fees should be raised. I feel that we should have the proper fleet to man it and have it properly run, so we're not spending 27 hours at each gas station and tying up the person's pumps and all like we do now. I know we needed for years to improve that truck. I know we need more personnel. We have part-time personnel instead of full-time personnel. It's I think when it gets up and running and we start doing it, we can look back, and if we decide to roll the fees back because we are making whatever, $60,000 a year or something, like you say, making. But you have to take that money and put it in a future fund for the next truck because they wear out. So I honestly feel I'm going to support this 100%. I supported it last time when they voted it down for a new truck. God only knows why they did that. And, Mr. McGee.
They were here before us the last meeting, and what I saw was, there's a lot of things coming. There's so many new gadgets. They have to keep up with technology, and I looked back at the room and I saw one guy running this big show, and it just seems like they need the support, and I'm also in support of it. I was in support of it. I think it's great. You did your homework. That's good, and
I do that pretty often.
But but we also have to do our homework collectively and look at moving forward in the future. If you're just going to live on a skim budget and expect all these services to happen, You know, this is also consumer advocacy, because, you know, we want to make sure we get a gallon of gas, and if we get a gallon of gas, or, you know, and the same works for the businesses. You know, they've identified some businesses that didn't, that actually were not helping themselves, and so I'm for it, and I think you need to fund services like this, and this is good government.
And also, even though we're at $60,000 plus, we hire one person with salary and benefits and everything included, it's gone. You don't have $60,000 anymore. So I think it's forward-looking by the administration to get to somewhere we're not yet. And I think that this weights and measures, I mean, you know, the last administration wanted to get rid of it all and put it on the state. You see how well that worked for everybody. They're asking us to do it for them. So I'm going to support it, and, you know, I wish everybody else would support it too. Peg?
I'd just like to say, as long as we're going to get enhanced services, more personnel, and a better, you know, a
real truck?
able to, you know, provide the services more effectively. Otherwise, that profit is just a hidden tax on businesses. Right. So let's enhance the service, and if we're not spending all that money, then we can relook at these fees.
Yeah, that's our purpose, so we can look at it and roll it back, you know.
But,
Are there any other discussion?
otherwise,
That's
your
what
tax, it's a
follow up a little bit.
tax.
So I agree with the services, and so I wouldn't say a slim margin is 60,000, which is 1/3 of it. So I wouldn't call that a slim margin. There was also 75,000 set aside for a truck, so that's half the truck for it right there.
Right.
So so I do agree we need a budget for it. I don't think we need to increase it so it's $130,000 that it's making. I believe when we approved that position last time, it increases it. It was 25 or 30,000.
Right. We made it part-time into a full-time.
Yeah, and which I agree with. Which means actually they'll inspect more scales, which means actually it'll increase. That alone will help increase some of the revenue. And it is the increased fees on these is a tax on. So that if we're going to increase these fees, it'll go on an increase of $70,000. That is a tax on the residents of Northampton County. They're going to pay for it, whether it's the shop owner that's now paying for it and needs coming out of their pocket. So therefore, they're not investing or you know, growing the economy, or it's going to get passed on to the consumer, and it's another $70,000 that it's the single mother that we're trying to take care of the most that's going to get hit by these things.
Right. Well, we're going to agree to disagree because, you know, I understand I'm not for raising fees either, but I see the further picture here and where we're going. So that's
Can I just make a comment? At the same time, you have to make sure that all these weights and measures are correct, so it does benefit the consumer when they're getting the amount of the product that they're actually buying.
We are doing that now. You realize that, right?
Yeah, but there's been cases where that's not necessarily true, where the scale is wrong, or there's vendors who have sold products and they had a deficit because their scales weren't correct. There was a gas station, too, that was a problem.
Do you think that will never happen? Like, if we increase these fees, that will not happen? There will not be a gas station that takes in water?
It's not that it won't happen. It's that we could try to ensure that it doesn't happen by increasing the services and making sure that they're more effectively allocated within this county. And by that time, it kind of saves the taxpayers some other money and gives them peace of mind that what they're getting is accurate when they're making their purchase.
I think we're currently doing that. I don't think there's anyone running around in Northampton County thinking that they're not getting what they are paying for.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this? Anybody comments, quotes? Please call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
Mr. Dietz.
No.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 7-2.
Thank you. Is there any other old business to come in front of County Council tonight? Seeing none. New business. We have the approval of the fiscal year 2018 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan Resolution. Mr. McGee, could you introduce the resolution, please?
Yes. Would that be read the whole thing, or
No, don't read the whole thing on me. I'll break your legs.
Now therefore be it resolved by council of Northampton, by council of the county of Northampton, that the fiscal year 2018 annual action plan for the fiscal year 2018 CDBG funds and submittal amendment is hereby approved. That it is cognizant of the conditions that are imposed in the undertaking and carrying out community development activities with federal financial assistance, that the county executive and the Department of Community and Economic Development are authorized to execute and file the financial assistance application for $1,543,379, as HUD has made this amount available to carry out the CDBG, and that the county exec is hereby authorized to provide such assurance and/or certifications as required by HUD, and also provide any additional documents that may be requested.
Are there any questions? Thank you, Mr. McGee. Comments? Call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dees.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is, there's no more new business?
Yes.
Do we have a new business?
President. No, we're all sitting here, so Ms. Zembo needs some direction. Myself and Mr. McGee and Mr. Warner had a discussion about possibly changing some times of the committee meetings. That would be Personnel, Finance, Public Works. And the idea of possibly bumping Public Works first, and then Personnel, and then Finance. And I said, as a person, I'm fine with that, and I think Bill said the same thing. But I wanted everybody, because we don't want it to bounce back and forth. So since everybody on all three committees is obviously sitting here tonight, I prefer that we keep August as it is, and then if you don't know tonight, we could do it. But does anyone have any? I'd like to find out if anyone has any concerns. Like, for example, on my Finance Committee, I think it's Tara, it's Bob, John, myself.
Well, first of all, you bring the committee chairs bring it to me to see if we want to change the meeting. We're not changing personnel because it regards people from the county who are on the payroll at the time. That's why that's at 4 o'clock, so they can be here. So personnel can't go. I mean, if you want to do personnel, then open space.
No,
I
it's
mean,
it's Public Works,
Then
Personnel,
capital
Finance.
improvements, and I have no problem with changing the schedule around. Personnel and finance are together.
And may I speak?
Yeah, but Bob.
I mean,
Let me
They also have work.
let me cut this short, make it easy, okay? Let's keep everything it is to the end of this year,
Okay.
and let's start it again next year, and look at the timeframes. The reason I presented this was capital projects, as you well know, starts at 6, goes till 6:20. And some of the other committees run longer, and we do have people, and it's out of consideration, we do have people that are waiting from getting out of here at 4 o'clock, sitting and waiting for the capital projects. And most people get tired and some get disinterested in what happens. So it is basically an outline and an update and a summary of what takes place with capital projects. So let's look at it next year.
Right, but then again, capital projects does not have to have a meeting every month to have
No.
the administration tell us what they're doing
No.
and how they're getting along. I mean, in past, yeah, we had to because nothing was getting done. But now that things are running and things are being done, it could be just a quick summary of what's being done once every quarter.
I would even try to, if we could even incorporate it in one of the other committee meetings.
Right.
would be
Well, the
interesting.
Capital Improvement Committee, in my view, became a rogue committee that had all these questions and went in and went over the administrative side and decided to ask every person who was running any department any question they felt like asking, which isn't our purview as a county council. So, I understand if people are here and they want to have something, put to the agenda, we can be a little more
just
cognizant of the time and not talk forever about subjects
I
that
don't
don't need to be
think we ever
talked
had
about.
that problem with capital projects this year. Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll make the recommendation. I think Mr. Cusick had a good idea, and I'll give him the credit for introducing the idea. Is that we will let it go for the rest of this year, and then next year let's look at the.
Okay, yeah, because
because I may not be the
we
chairman.
have generators.
Yeah, we do.
We got them after 19 years. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Heckman, for that enlightening subject. Any council committee reports?
No.
No? Council
Just
committee? Mr. McGee?
No.
Sure?
Well, just on I don't know if it's a retirement board, but I just want to commend I was on the retirement board committee, and And I think that they didn't go looking for this problem. This problem came and found them. And I think they found a really good resolution. They could have kicked the can down the road, and they didn't. They tackled the problem, they governed, and they came up with a very equitable solution, a very fair solution for everybody. And I just think they did a great job with it, and that's all I have to comment.
And I agree. Any council liaison reports?
I have two.
Mr. Cusick had his hand up first.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank the staff at the elections office. Earlier this evening, Mr. Heckman and myself received a demonstration on a proposed new machine, I believe. I think it's terrific. I think the absentee ballot, that is a huge improvement over the system we have now. I like the full screen. It's very similar to the display we have. And I would urge the administration to move forward with a potential purchase and work with the election board, because it's time we get rid of what we have. It's no longer suitable. So I would encourage you to continue that process.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Heckman, I'll address that. The election machines, the Election Commission recommends to us what to buy. I wanted you guys to go over and be able to become familiar with one of the machines that floated to the top that they seem to like, but I don't know if it's the one they're going to pick. That's up to the Election Commission. They'll bring it to the administration, the Election Commission. They'll bring it to us like I had to 9 years ago, when Ron
12.
Engel told me that my machines would break in a year, and presented to council, and council approves the purchase. So that will come. You will see it. Anybody, I'm trying to see if they're going to keep the machine longer, if they're going to have it longer. Ms. Zembo sent out another email to everybody who hasn't gotten to see it, this particular machine, to see how they go, because we need a paper trail of voting now. So that's what we're going after. What? We have 4 or 5 people that see it. Peg didn't. You saw it.
I saw it.
So we have 2.
No.
We are
3.
trying to get them to keep it tomorrow.
Right, and I asked Dee the same thing, if she could keep it, but the guy who's ahead of it is in like Tennessee or something. So as soon as I find out, I'm going to let them know so you can see. It's right. It's a nice machine. I know the Election Commission went to Harrisburg to see the different ones that they offer. So.
Mr. Kraft, if I may, I know it has to go through elections, but they'll ultimately come to them. Now, my understanding, I think Mr. Chris was there, what they were proposing over there made sense. They'd like to, if everybody moves fast enough, to actually have these up for 2019 rather than in a presidential election. We don't need that.
I think the law is pretty clear when the machine has to be bought and put in service, or is it not?
It's not.
It really?
No,
Again?
we should probably frame this, Mr. Cusick
Again?
knows this from CCAP, that this particular machine has been certified by the federal government,
But not by
has
the
not
state
been
yet.
certified by the state
There's
yet.
the catch-22.
Yeah, so we couldn't buy anything, and I wouldn't suggest to you to buy anything that hadn't been certified by the state.
So
yet.
we may not hear this
So-
for months, what we want,
Right.
what they
And
want.
I think that once the process moves, it'll move quickly, and we'll be ready for it.
Right,
We'll have the money identified to do it.
And that's why I wanted everybody to go and get
But
familiar with
that's the
particular
other thing.
machine.
What the state has told us is they're not mandating that we buy new machines now, but they're going to.
Right.
They said it's coming.
Right.
So, and the guidance they've given Mr. Dertinger informally, I guess, is that they don't want us to be practicing on them in 2020.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
We want that to happen.
So, I mean, a couple of the big takeaways are the state hasn't made us buy new machines yet, but they're going to. This isn't a choice. We're not doing this
Right.
because we
Right.
want a nicer looking machine.
It's not like the state will drag their feet on anything.
We also don't know how much of the $13 million, that's it.
That's it?
That
Yeah.
the state is thinking about allocating for the purchase of new machines.
Great.
We might want to be in the front of that line as opposed to the.
An unfunded mandate. Okay.
Yep.
That makes
All right.
sense.
Thank you. I
Thank
wanted
you.
to just make sure that this wasn't a
Right.
choice that we're
Right,
engaging
yeah, I know
in
it's
this
not our,
process.
it's the Election Commission's
Right.
choice, and it's one of the ideas of what we're going to look at, so.
No, it's not our choice to buy new machines.
Oh, well, yeah, I know
We're
it's
being-
not our
we-
choice.
We will be mandated to.
We're not
It's
going to do
coming.
anything like that unfunded mandate from the state again.
Well, yes,
Lori.
you will.
Yeah, we will when they say do it. Ms. Hefner.
2 liaison reports. One, the Drug and Alcohol Board met last Friday. Beth Miller is the new chair, or the new Tiffany. I'm trying to think. I think they said that their budget was in, that all their requests for funding were in, and that, things seem like a pretty seamless, smooth transition so far. The Jail Advisory Board met this Tuesday. We talked about the dog. We talked about all the different needs that the prisoners have. I just have to commend the staff because they seem super responsive to everything that's gone on. They need donations of Qurans because that seems to be in short supply, and it seems you could get a Bible for 17 cents, but you can't get a Quran for that much. They're much more expensive. So they're working on it. So if anybody has any Qurans they'd like to donate or knows of a group that's willing to, prison inmates are looking for that. The other more important thing is that Mr. Dietz has graciously volunteered to serve as the Stepping Up Initiative coordinator that we met a few weeks ago.
We actually met today, too.
As a committee. He's part and the chair of the subcommittee that's really working on this corrections and mental health initiative. So Judge Barada made a very impassioned plea for us to move on this quickly, get things done, and so there's a good team of people meeting to do a quick needs assessment and then get moving in the direction of making this happen and getting mostly to get people who are not getting hearings because of their mental health status and taking up space and time in the prison system who don't need to. So kudos to Mr. Dietz. And that's it. God bless you.
Any other liaison reports?
I'm going to go see Joan Jett tomorrow.
Mr. Dietz.
I'll let you know.
Just real quick on the airport, they've had another month of growth. They're doing very well. Queen City, which although it's in Lehigh County, on Saturday the 25th, they're having a pretty good show over there. It's a free event to go around and get to see. The 25th, Saturday the 25th. Yeah, and they do fireworks and that.
I don't drive on 22.
And then in regards to Easton, they've actually finished all the projects. Actually, Economic Development's going to be doing a tour just to inspect to make sure all the stuff is done, which is good because actually they do the flight school, which we talked about that was in there. There's also a maintenance facility that's in there. So they're making good use of the renovations that we've done there. So.
Good to hear. Any other liaison reports? Council Clerk's report. I know Mr. Spadoni looks different because Mr. Kelleher has filled in for him, and I'm sure you don't have a report for us, do you?
I do not have a report. I'm here tonight at Mr. Spadoni's request. He had a commitment that he couldn't neither move nor get out of. So with President Kraft's permission and with those of the rest of your board, I'm here tonight in his stead. I'm sure he'll be back at your next meeting and will continue to serve you well.
And we thank you for standing
Glad to be
in.
here.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Righty.
I don't know. Jim. Who's paying for the training? Are we or is it anonymous donor? The anonymous donor.
Because that's like 15,000. That's correct.